What's up, guys? Welcome back to the doctor's office. I am Dr. Kaori Knight, here to give you proper diagnosis and prognosis and everything comics and comic book characters. We are on book 4 for Absolute Green Lantern. When I tell you, I knew that this was going to be fucking fabulous. And the villain here is still Hal Jordan. Because as much as I dislike Hal Jordan, I'm loving this. I need him to be a villain so fucking bad, honestly. So, Joe and Hal are still talking. He's still interacting with the Black Hand, and it's telling him to, be the Black Star, Hal. And he's just like, no, I can't do it. And she's like, seriously, Hal? I need you to pull yourself together. I need you to concentrate, focus. I need you to just take control of that thing, honestly. The Black Hand or whatever it's called. I need you to get the shit together. She's like, look what you did. And I can completely understand the crash out because look what I did. And then we get into the rest of the story. However, Hal is acting like he did not just actively murder a restaurant full of people. That's what she's talking about, right? She's not talking about anything else. And he's like, look what I did. And he turns into a fucking monster. And he attacks her. And she fights him. She's able to, defend herself, placing herself, in a, a bubble of sorts. And he's like, what happened to Evergreen? So then she's forced to go into the story of what happened to their town. Again, him getting mad as if she's the innocent party here, I can understand that. But you knew exactly what she was talking about. You're acting like you did not just kill a bunch of people. The thing with her is, when you get into the background of the story, his crash out then doesn't too much make sense. So, getting into the story, there is nobody else in town other than the three of them. So it's Hal, it's Joe, and it's that guy who's there. He's important, but I forget his name. It's been a minute. Anyway, and so they've essentially come up with that solid gold plan, or that gold plan that they were doing. So he, as we saw at the end of the last issue, he was painting those bullets gold. So basically the plan is that they're going to have Joe be the distraction and talk to him, talk to Abensur, and Hal just needs a clean shot to shoot him with the gold bullet. So that's the plan. Okay. So he says, they're sitting there talking, drinking, and there are people who, the people who they wanted to talk to. Everybody's just gone. And he calls her Sojourner, and she's like, you sound like my ex, and I wish I could talk to her. This is an emotional, high stakes thing. So, everybody's kind of feeling out of it. Get it. Got it. Good. Okay. So she goes out screaming that she wants to speak with Abensur. Now, as she has called for him, he comes down, and at first he's like, be without fear. What's up? And she's like, because she was saying she had questions and everything. And so basically she's like, why did you kill them all? You disintegrated all of them. And he was like, them all?
Nani?
I don't know what you're talking about. And she's just like, you killed Guy, you killed John, you killed all of these people. There's nobody here except for the three of us. You killed all of these people. And he's like,
what?
Confusion. What the fuck are you talking about? I can only imagine that that's exactly what he wanted to say, which was, what the fuck are you talking about? Because the way he was looking at her, he was lost. He was like, okay, so let me just recap this for you since you seem to be confused. The guy on the motorcycle, Jason, he died because he was going top speed, ran into the barrier, his ass is dead, right? Rita got killed. Her existence ended because she killed another person with her chaotic action. And chaotic actions like that could not continue. So I killed her ass. And I think he said like one more person had gotten killed, but those were the only lives he ended. He was like, no other life has ended as a result of this aventure. And she's like, what are you talking about? You killed Guy, you killed John, and you killed all of the people who lived here. And she's like, you disintegrated them all. He was like, disintegrated. And he then describes disintegration. And he was like, please have understanding, what you're talking about did not happen. Those people are not dead. They are definitely alive. They are in Oa, actually. They exist in Oa. They just don't exist here. And the reason they don't exist here is because they're in the second phase and judgment is in progress. And she's like, what? Mind you, he's supposed to be shooting because she got clear. Hal's supposed to take a shot. She got clear, but he's listening to the information being brought out and the fact that he is responding to her and talking to her. And he is explaining that nobody has died except for those people that he actively killed and then the guy who got killed by the barrier. And so she's like, what does that mean? And he then tells her to be with fear and she needs to be afraid of Card and the weapons of Card. And she's like, what does that mean? And then he just like, ugh. And Hal does say that everything could end right here. And then in present, he's like, it could and it did. Not that he took the shot or anything, but as he has given her that information, and then we flash forward to present, and he was like, and then what happened, Joe? What did you do? And she's like, you saw. He did that thing where he's answering the question as vague as possible. And basically he was saying that people needed to be chosen. So he was like, I'm Avensur. And then constituents need to be chosen. And there was like 3 other people who needed to be chosen. And, judgment was in progress and all this other stuff. So like people needed to be chosen to fight like fear and fight for the light and things like that. So essentially other Green Lanterns needed to be chosen is what he was saying. And he was saying like, I didn't kill anybody. And so as he's explaining this, he's doing that thing where he vaguely answers the question or answers the question in a riddle and is like, okay, now you have understanding, bye. And it's like, you're still confused. And Joe says it. She's like, I don't have understanding. And she kind of just like instinctively reached out with what I'm assuming is her dominant hand. And her dominant hand had that gold ring on her finger from her ex. And so it went through his unsolidified state into like his being and everything, and she just saw all kinds of things like that, all kinds of things, and the light ended up going inside of her. So when all of that whole situation was finished, he kept calling it he called it a chaotic action, which it was, and then he called it an anomaly, which it is. And then the barrier fell out of the sky, went dead, and caused a gigantic green explosion, which destroyed that whole town. And we still don't know what happened to the guy. I'm going to assume that he's dead, right? And then this is basically how we get here. Meanwhile, while that Green Lantern sign or symbol is just like in the middle of this place, Hector Hammond has shown up and he's like, are we going to have a problem with Lazarus with this? And his secretary is like, no, because they have an issue of their own. The issue of their own that they are having is Superman. That is what's currently going on with Lazarus right now. That is the issue that they are having. That's the issue they are having, and that's why they couldn't respond to that. So Hector Hammond has this whole thing going on, and he's basically keeping it to himself and says, like, let's bump up security. Baby, when I tell you that this issue was phenomenal. Now, again, Hal acting like he hasn't done anything wrong is absolutely insane to me. But you know what? That's normal Hal behavior. That is normal Hal Jordan behavior. So it does not surprise me in the least, because he knew what she was talking about. No, on what I've done. what did you do? She actually didn't do anything, because if we're listening to what Abensur said, Abensur took everybody out of that town except for those 3. And they are all in the second phase with judgment in progress, which means they're all on Oa, according to him. And they even, as they're having the conversation, there's nobody there. So destroying some houses that could probably just be rebuilt, considering that there are no people there, seems like a small price to pay. You, however, went into a completely different town and killed a restaurant full of people. You knew exactly what she was talking about. She was not talking about what happened prior to this. She was talking about what you just did. And she's still trying to get you to calm down. And then you decide, oh, I'm going to flip it on you because look what you did. What I did was basically an accident. You know, it was kind of just like a normal reaction thing, because she knew what he was about to do, and she didn't want him to just leave, because she's telling him, I do not have understanding. I do not understand what you're talking about. And she reached her hand out. But you know, we were all under the impression that they got killed, right? So up until this point, and then we get to this part where he's like, oh, I haven't killed anybody else. I'm like, oh. And then he says like that 3 more people, or 3 people need to be chosen, and it's just like, okay, because we already know that Guy and John are Green Lanterns, so is that. And I also love the subtle reference to Absolute Superman as well. Again, Lazarus was dealing with their own problem is Superman. Okay, that is the only reason that they're not here answering this thing. So but that is it for this episode of The Doctor's Office. I'm very interested. This book there has not been a bad issue in all 4. Hear me? But yes, that is it for this episode of The Doctor's Office. If you have not gotten Midnight Whispers, totally do. But I do implore you to go to the Shadow Library and get Salt Blood. Salt Blood just came out on the 4th. Super excited. It's on Amazon. It's you can get the ebook on Shadow Library, and you can also go to Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble has the ebook, and they will be having the paperback on July 15th. So, but I will see you guys at your next checkup.